Self-confidence is quite a paradox. If you don't already have self-confidence, there's nothing you can achieve, there's no positive affirmation you can say that is going to give you confidence. Because if you don't already have it, any accomplishment that you make will not sink in with you. And I'm sure you've all noticed this, that if you struggle with confidence, when you actually do something well, you don't feel it. Someone compliments you, you don't feel it. When you try to say something positive to yourself about yourself, you don't feel it, you don't believe it. That's because you already don't have confidence in yourself. You may get a quick burst of satisfaction. Let's say you graduate from college and you feel really good about yourself temporarily until that fades. And then you feel like you have to do another thing to feel confident again. And then you become dependent on any external validation to become confident. The confidence never sticks. And this is why I think it is quite a paradox. How do you escape this? Because if you're struggling with confidence and you think to yourself, well, I'm just going to better myself. I'm going to improve. I'm going to hit the gym. I'm going to study harder. I'm going to learn new skills at work. And you do all those things, and no matter what you do, it never seems to be enough. Nothing satisfies you. And you can never really appreciate when you do something well. It's always, yeah, but. And that's why I think that the solution to this paradox is that if you want to be confident, you just have to give yourself confidence. Now, I know that might sound a little crazy. And maybe you're sitting there thinking, well, what if I don't deserve it? Well, why should I give myself confidence if I don't deserve it? But I think that's where you have it all wrong. It isn't about deserving confidence. And let me give you an example. Let's say you have two children, two 5-year-olds. One of them is really confident in themselves, and one of them isn't confident in themselves. What's the difference? Is one of the 5-year-olds so successful, they've achieved so much in their 5 years of life that they've deserved to be confident? Or is it simply that that 5-year-old has been encouraged by their parents, by their peers, by their teachers, by their neighborhood, by the people around them? They have been encouraged to be confident in themselves, regardless of what the outcome is. Because that's the other thing about confident people. It's not like they're always right. It's not like they do things perfectly all the time. They make mistakes, but they allow themselves to make mistakes. It doesn't shatter their entire being. The reason you may struggle with confidence is you were never really encouraged from an early age to let yourself feel confident, to believe in yourself. Every time you did something well, it was, yeah, but. You were taught to doubt yourself, to question yourself. It's never good enough. Maybe it was parents, maybe it was a teacher, maybe it was your peers, whoever it was. But you learned that being confident just wasn't for you. You weren't worthy of confidence. Name me a child who isn't worthy of feeling confident in themselves. And this is why I think we have to just give ourselves confidence. We have to be able to say to ourselves, you know what? I deserve respect. I deserve to feel good about myself when I do something well. And I deserve to sit with that feeling and let myself feel that. And if I make a mistake, to be an encouraging friend to myself, to not to tear myself down, because, well, that's not going to help you. When has it ever helped you to torment yourself over a mistake? I understand being critical. It's important to be critical of yourself, to notice when you make mistakes. But there's no sense in tormenting yourself forever because you've made a mistake. You need a base level of confidence, a belief in yourself, that no matter what happens, no matter how bad life gets, no matter how many times you fail, that you can get back up and do it again. And again, you're sitting there and maybe you're saying, but I don't have evidence of that. I don't have proof of being able to do that. I look at my life and I'm a failure. First of all, let's remember your entire mindset is biased. You can't be objective because your entire life you've looked at yourself in this way. So even when you do something successful, you can't see it. You can't look back and even remember it or acknowledge it. You can only remember the negative. That's why you feel so negatively about yourself. So you have to realize that your own view of yourself is biased by your past. And the second thing I would consider is think of all the other people who don't feel confident in themselves. If you were talking to someone and they were struggling with their own confidence, what advice would you give them? And how would you know if they deserved to feel confident? Is it merely based on their achievements? If you met someone and they hadn't accomplished much in life, would you say to them, well, you don't deserve to be confident because you're a loser? I don't know. Maybe you would. Maybe you're sitting there saying, yeah, I probably would. Okay, so let's take a person who's doing on paper really well. How would you convince them that they should feel confident? Let's say you met someone and on paper they were really successful in their career, in their life, they had a bunch of friends, they were in a relationship, however you measure success, but they weren't feeling confident in themselves. How would you try to convince them? In your mind, you're probably thinking, well, I would show them all the great things that they've done. Look, you built this company, you have a ton of friends who love you, you have this, you have that. But guess what? That's not going to work. We've already established that trying to use external validation when you're not feeling confident in yourself, it doesn't work. There's nothing you can say about their abilities, about their talents, about their accomplishments that is going to make them feel any better. They're already trying it with themselves. They've tried that. They've tried to look at all the great things they've done, and they still don't feel confident in themselves. And I've seen people like this all the time. They're on paper, they look really successful, but it's just never quite good enough. And again, it comes from that fear from maybe early childhood, throughout their life, where they learned, if I don't get it perfect every time, I'm in trouble. I'm not good enough. I didn't do it the right way, the perfect way. But that is a loop that will never end. There's not a person on this planet who has not screwed up at some point. And you have to realize that you are going to make mistakes along the way. Confidence doesn't come from perfection. It comes from allowing yourself to make mistakes, noticing your mistakes, and telling yourself, I can continue forward. I can keep pushing. I can keep going. It's not about the accomplishment itself. It's about the ability to adapt and to adjust. If you're able to have empathy and understanding for other people who are struggling with these sorts of things, you have to be able to give it to yourself. You're able to look at someone who's struggling with their confidence and be encouraging to them, but you can't be encouraging to yourself. If you had a child who was struggling with their confidence, how would you speak to them? What kind of things would you say? How would you encourage them to feel confident in themselves? Would you just base it on their external accomplishments? And this is the other thing, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because usually when we don't feel good about ourselves, then we're less effective at what we're trying to do. If I don't feel good about myself, my grades are probably going to drop, right? Or whatever it is that you're measuring yourself by. So if you're not already feeling good, then you're going to struggle. And then every time you struggle, you're going to say, see, I'm a failure. There's more proof I'm a failure. Not realizing that you're just not in a very good place right now. And if you were able to change that mindset and give yourself some positivity and some motivation, things might start changing. You might be able to focus more. You might have more energy to put towards things. It's very hard to do difficult things when we don't feel good about ourselves. So we have to realize these cycles that we get into, and we merely have to accept that we deserve to feel confident. We don't have to prove anything to get it. That will never work, because anything you do will never be good enough, or you won't be able to see it, you won't be able to feel it. Nothing will be acceptable. You just have to say to yourself, I deserve to feel confident. And you might not think that that is sufficient, that that's a good enough argument, but I don't see any other way around it. There's an idea in philosophy called an axiomatical assumption. This is something that we assume without further proof. I'll give you an example. The law of non-contradiction, which states that something can't be true and untrue at the same time. That is just an assumption. You can't prove it further. There's a laundry list of axiomatical assumptions that we make in philosophy, in our day-to-day life, that we just take for granted because there's really no other way to go about it. We just have to accept it. Maybe that's not the answer you want to hear, but at this point, what's the harm in trying to say to yourself, I deserve this. Let me try to give this to myself. And let's see where I go from there. Maybe just giving yourself a little boost, just an ounce of confidence. And now you're on your way. And practice when you actually do something well. Acknowledge it. Sit with it for a moment. Don't just look at everything else you could have done wrong. Acknowledge what you've done well. And when you make a mistake, ask yourself, how am I tying this mistake into my entire personality, into my entire being? Can I separate myself from this mistake for a minute? That this one screw up is not the end of the world. It doesn't define me. Because again, when we are already not feeling well, this is what our brain does. It goes to all the negative first. It sees all the negative. It can't see the positive. We need to make a very strong effort to flip the script. We can't just fall into the same mental patterns over and over again. I know it's not your fault. These are really, at this point, automatic thoughts. They're just popping up in your head. You really don't have a choice about whether or not they come up, but you do have a choice about whether or not you engage with them. So when that negative talk starts, I'm a failure, I'm a loser, look, I screwed up again, you got to pause and say, wait a minute, I've been doing this my whole life. It doesn't work. I'm trying to motivate myself by hating myself. That doesn't work. That only makes you feel worse. This may not land with everybody, but I hope it helps somebody out there. Thanks again for listening in, and I'll see you soon.